So in this video, you'll learn more about what psychometric assessments are and how to use them to identify the correct talent for the job that you're recruiting for. In our process, we have a number of steps, and the goal here is to predict someone's attitude, aptitude, and behaviours. And psychometric assessments play a really important step in this process. Much like an iceberg, what drives people's behaviour is mostly hidden under the surface. And while we can touch on this throughout interviews, reference checks, and steps in between, psychometric assessments provide a really useful tool to really dive deep and understand what drives behaviour. What's important to note is that not every job is for everyone. So not everyone will have the natural behaviours that lend well to an accountant or a salesperson, and that's completely okay. What psychometric assessments allow us to do is to really take an in-depth view into a person and really understand their natural behaviours as well as their ability. There is no greater tool that has a higher validity or a higher reliability than psychometric assessments. And we use a provider called SHL. They're a global provider of psychometric assessments. They've been validated across millions of people across a number of different industries and roles. And they, again, provide really good insight into a person. So as part of the SHL assessment suite, we administer what we call general cognitive ability assessments. The name of the assessments themselves are what we call the G+ suite. And these assess inductive, deductive, and numerical reasoning. Essentially, these answer really critical questions around whether this person can follow complex instruction, solve new novel problems, and even deal with day-to-day roadblocks in their role. Now, we tend to use certain guidelines, and these can change depending on the particular role. But as an example, we often look for an inductive reasoning score in the 30th percentile. This is a recommendation that SHL themselves make, and a candidate that scores below this score will typically struggle to follow instruction and often find hiring managers commenting that they don't tend to pick up instructions as well and often find that they need to micromanage them a lot more than other higher performing candidates in these assessments. Relative to people that score lower in these assessments, someone with a higher assessment score, say for inductive reasoning, will have a really strong ability, or will likely have a strong ability in picking up new information, going out on their own and really being able to solve things quite autonomously. So the second form of assessment that we administer is what we call an Occupational Personality Questionnaire, or an OPQ. Now, simply put, this assessment assesses someone's preferred styles and behaviours in the workplace. Now, we assess a number of different competencies. As an example, if you're looking for an accountant, you're likely looking for someone with a really high attention to detail. And this is an area that these assessments can provide really strong indication of someone's likelihood to critically evaluate work that they do and really make sure that it's accurate and error-free. As another example, if you're looking for a really organised salesperson who can maintain their call cycles and really make sure they follow up with customers, this OPQ can really give us a strong indication of someone's likelihood to adhere to deadlines and be organised and methodical in their role. So these assessments give us an indication of someone's natural strengths, or where their natural energy usually goes. However, this isn't all that a candidate or a person can do in their role, because often there are things that are learnt behaviours that they have developed across their career. Perhaps they've identified that although their natural energy may not go towards being attentive to detail, they may have learnt across their career that having the correct checking processes is important, having a really clear method of making sure that information is accurate and error-free is something that's very important to their role. And these are things that we actually assess not only in the OPQ, but also come through in the behavioural interview as well, which gives us a really strong indication of their learnt behaviours across their career and how they can transfer those into this role. So we collect a lot of information on competencies and skills that are both relevant and not relevant to the role. It's really important to be able to identify what is a priority within this role. So some people look for salespeople who are highly organised, where that person interaction may not be as high a priority. Whereas for other roles, maybe that person-focused element of persuading and relating with others is really critical to this role. Discussing with your Inject consultant on areas that can be developed and some areas that may be absolutely crucial for someone to come into the role with is something that we can help with and definitely do recommend doing so across the recruitment process. We not only use these assessments to identify the correct person to come into the role, but it's also a really important tool to really set this person up for success coming into the position, and is a really useful tool to use for ongoing development. This is actually something that we do as part of our process. Is once the correct person has been hired in the role, we can then provide really clear insight in a candidate assessment report that ties together the assessments as well as the other interviews and reference checks into manageable and really practical insight on how to manage your new employee. In this video, we've discussed our approach to assessments, the type of assessments we use, and how we actually use these to assess candidates. If you have any further questions, please reach out to your Inject consultant to discuss further.